All right, I'm here with Rob Snyder, the guy on LinkedIn that you know for his product market fit advice and helping SaaS founders go from 0 to 1. Rob, thank you for joining, and I've really been enjoying your content recently. Cool. Can you hype yourself up a little bit to people, just so people know why you're qualified, why people pay attention to you, what you've done before, and I give you permission here to brag a little bit.
Cool, cool. First and foremost, I identify as a Buffalo Bills fan, which means I am just cautious generally. Uh, but s- but second, the reason I got to talking about this was because I came from a pretty traditional business background to get into startups. So I worked at McKinsey and Company, then I went to Harvard Business School. In Harvard Business School, I decided I wanted to start a startup because I thought it was a really cool thing to do. And I was like, listen, I'm probably qualified. I've done all the research. I've read all the books.
You're like, I got all the theory. Let's get into practice now.
It's just translating theory to practice. Like, how hard can that be? I'm smart. And then I got punched in the face for 2 years in pre-product market fit hell, where I increasingly realized that all of the frameworks and ideas and stuff that were talked about in theory didn't seem to actually work in practice. And so that experience sucked. And it didn't feel like anybody, it just felt like nobody was talking about that. Obviously I didn't know what the answer was. I knew what the answer wasn't. So then we scaled from 0 to 4 million ARR in the next 2 years. And the way,
And this was our work, right?
and the way we did that kind of broke my brain. It didn't work like it was supposed to. And I've talked to a couple other founders after. I was like, okay, maybe this was just a fluke. I don't know. But I talked to a bunch of other founders who had gone through similar experiences, and it seemed like there was this shadow playbook that we had all gone through. We wouldn't really talk about publicly because it didn't make sense, or it didn't make traditional business sense. And so that's kind of how I got here.
So how long did it take for our work to get from 0 to 1 million in ASR?
A million was in under a year from first revenue, and then 0 to 4 was 2 years or so.
Okay, wow. But you said you spent 2 years before that just making no money at all, essentially.
This idea, totally different direction,
Uh-huh.
just wasn't, and going through pivot hell. So yeah, if you, depending on when you start the clock, right, it could be kind of
Yeah.
I think of it as okay, first revenue with something to 1 million ARR was a year.
Yeah.
2 years before that of hitting heads against wall.
Right. Okay. Yeah. I just saw a LinkedIn post. I don't know if you saw that. The company is called Time Left. They spent 3 years making zero money, 4 pivots. After 3 years, they made their first dollar. From there, it took them 7 months to hit 1 million in ARR, and another 7 months to hit 10 million in ARR. They're now at like 13 million ARR.
Yeah.
It's insane.
It's crazy. And it just when you get into it, the question is, why did it work then? And that's a really interesting question if you actually care about what causes a company to work versus what doesn't. And so that's kind of where I've been obsessed.
Okay. Put it in a nutshell for me. We can't speak an hour about it, and I'm sure you can speak for more than 1 hour about it. But what makes a company work in a nutshell if you had to contend?
Yeah, so I think of it as there's two competing worldviews here. There is the top-down worldview that talks about big abstract problems, markets, products, roadmaps, all that kind of stuff. Yeah, all that stuff. Companies only work at the one customer level. You never sell to a persona. You sell to one customer at a time. And so the path is finding one customer who says hell yes, and then just repeating their story. That's it. It's a lot of the stuff that matters emerges as a result of doing that. It does not cause that.
Let's say I found one person, they pay me, I'm getting a hell yes. But now I find a second person, but they're like, Yeah, I really like that, but I also need something a little bit different because I have a different situation, different scenario. Do I say, no, sorry, I move on to another person?
That's the art. That's the art of figuring this out, right? There is
Ah,
a
shit.
science here is how do we find the patterns across that we can then kind of upgrade from one customer to a cluster of like 10 hell yes customers and understand the mechanics there. It's yeah, that's the art piece of this. That's why they pay us.
Right.
And
So you're now the guy to help people figure that out and navigate this messy pre-product market fit stage. How did you get there? Like when you had that realization at your company, Our Work, to now being the person who helps people do that, like did you just put out some ideas? Like what was the path to there, let's say?
yeah, basically friends started reaching out and saying, "How the hell did that happen?" And so they started pulling me in, and I wasn't quite sure why it worked. And so I just kind of come in and help them tinker on things in their sales process, in their messaging, and all that kind of stuff. And, we saw some stuff that worked, some stuff that didn't. And from that, I started to kind of like build a theory and started to write about it publicly because I wanted to, I don't know, see if it made sense and see if I was thinking about it right. And so started doing that pretty soon after it started working. Like I started writing a newsletter, like a Substack, to just try to make sense of it in my own head and make sense of it as I talk with my founder friends.
Yep. Okay. Interesting. Now I know I want to get to the funnel that marketing part, and we will get there. But because I have you here, what's your definition of product market fit?
Yeah.
Like, if you look at a company and you're trying to answer the question, do they have product market fit? Like,
Yeah.
what's the criteria?
Yeah. So the criteria is they are repeating one customer success story, one customer case study, and they are demonstrating that they can repeat that. And it's a hell yes before and after people buy. The metric that actually matters most for obviously we care about like the number of customers coming in, but the real metric, which Mark Roberge from uh, he was HubSpot, now he's Stage 2 Capital. He talks about the
Mhm.
number of customers or percentage of customers hitting a leading indicator of customer retention, aka they are going to keep buying from you, right? That's actually the most important metric. So in my mind, it is, are we repeating a hell yes customer success story that's getting everybody to that leading indicator of retention?
I don't fully understand what you mean with getting everyone to that leading indicator of success.
Basically, everyone who buys from us, they're going to either be really satisfied and keep buying, or they're going to churn. Yeah, we don't have product market fit if everyone churns. We only have product market fit if a majority of people keep buying from us. And so we often have annual contracts or something like that. So figuring that out is really hard. Like it's very much a lag indicator. So we need to have some sort of a leading indicator if they're going to renew or not. And so what matters most is us figuring out, when do they say, hell yes, I'm never going to churn from this, or I'm not going to churn from this, I'm going to keep using this. That is what we're designing the entire like system for.
How do I find what my, by the way, does this apply only to SaaS? Does it apply to, okay, I'm running an agency, so you're going to coach me here a little bit. How do I find my leading indicator? So I sell a month-to-month service. I have some customers who churn after 3 months. I have some customers who churn after 25 months. How do I know, looking at that, what the leading indicator is that I need to validate with every customer?
Yeah, so that depends on why are they buying it in the first place? What are they trying to accomplish? And what's the moment? You have to find the moment where they're like, oh, okay, yeah, I'm going to keep using this. Like, okay, I get it now. Yes, this makes sense. Yes, this fits in my world. It would be weird for me to churn at this point. And so let me give you a different example. Like we had an
Yeah.
employee retention tool for hourly workplaces, right? And so what it would do is it would see which of your employees is going to quit in advance
Mm.
so you can retain them. Okay.
How?
If we could get customers their first notification that an employee was going to quit that they could prevent in like a couple of weeks, they would say hell yes pretty immediately and then tell everyone they knew about this, right? And so that's
getting a quick win in a second.
getting the quick win that turns off the light in their brain that says, I might not keep buying this.
Okay. What's the question you need to ask people to figure out what that thing is?
So for the customers that have stuck around, I would ask them, what's the moment? Like, I would be looking for that moment when they realized that this was going to work for them, and compare your successful customers and see if that moment replicated or didn't with your unsuccessful customers.
And then just single-mindedly drive toward that thing right from the
Those are
start.
trained to it. Like, force everyone to that moment. It would be like, this is more in SaaS than, but we often like throw someone buys and we like throw the product at them and they're like, good luck. Like, no, we have to force them to that hell yes success moment. And so I just think of it as like designing a bullet train where it would be weird if a bullet train took a wrong turn, right? It's
Right.
there.
Now, next question. Where do you usually find the missing ingredients to product market fit? What I mean by that question is there's a million things to look at, right? Product, features, messaging on our homepage, how I'll run my sales call, how we do, like, where do you most often find yourself being like, here we need to tweak something, and that can have the biggest impact?
Yeah. So it is almost always the sales call. If you structure a sales call as like, hey, here's a success story, here's a case study of a successful customer. How are you different than this? Then basically what you're able to do, like, that is a very delightful experience for someone to purchase. It doesn't feel like I'm across the table from you trying to twist your arm to buy this. It's like, hey, we're sitting on the same side of the table, looking at the case study together. How are you different, right? What I'm then able to do is I'm able to get their reaction to the case study and see how they try to fit it into their world and how it fits or not. And I get a ton of really useful feedback from that experience of someone trying to purchase, which then I can use to iterate on the case study. And I view the case study as kind of the blueprint for everything else out there. So the case study should inform my website, right? Based on changes I make in the case study, based on what I learn from potential customers in the sales process, I can make changes everywhere.
And when you think about the case study, is it essentially, here's a person, they had situation A, they came in, they did this, this, and this, and this, either with the product or by themselves or leveraging certain things or information that we gave them. And then they had outcome B.
Yeah, pretty close. Like, it's like, here's a person with situation. Here was the project. I think of it as like when people are trying to buy something, there's like a project on their mental to-do list. Okay, cool. This is a project that was on their mental to-do list. Here's why it was there. Here's the options they considered. Here's where we fit, and here's what the results were. And like, that is the best encapsulation of a case study.
Mm. And then someone might say, yeah, I just don't have that same situation, or yeah, I'm just not willing to do those things that that person did, or that seems way too much work, or stuff like that.
Totally. And based on that, you can figure out who is your ideal target customer? What exactly is the project on their mental to-do list when they're our best customer? You know, like, what exact words do they see and say, oh my God, thank you for reaching out to me. This is amazing.
Mm. Okay. Now, it's not a term that I came up with, but I saw it somewhere. I picked it up. I don't remember who came up with it, but the idea is message market fit, which is similar to product market fit. What is the message that you can put out that resonates with people, where when they see it, they read it, they're like, oh yeah, that resonates. I want that. Tell me more. You seem to me like someone who found message market fit. Would you agree with that statement? And if so, how do you think about that journey of finding message market fit?
Yes, I would agree. I mean, I think I can make it like a lot better. I think I can keep improving on it, but I think generally I have found some sort of semblance of fit. How do I think about it? I actually don't really think about that very much. I really, I'm just trying to figure out this early stage thing, and I'm writing stuff explicitly as like a letter to my past self, an extended letter. And so that's just all I'm doing as I'm writing publicly in my newsletter on LinkedIn. That's it.
Which again is very similar to product market fit, because one common advice is build a product that scratches your own itch. Which, if your content is your product, then that's what you do, and you're writing the post that you wish you could have read 5 years ago or 3 years ago. Okay, is that the advice that you would give to founders essentially? But this works because you were a SaaS founder and you're talking to SaaS founders, so you have that lens. If you're talking to a founder and they sell to HR leaders,
Yeah.
what? How do you think is the right way to approach? How do I create content that resonates with people on that journey and experimenting?
Yeah, the way that I have this like weird thing called the one customer rule in my mind. And it is you can either write something that resonates with one actual person, or you can write something that resonates with no actual people. And so, and so whenever writing generally, just have one person in your mind and run it by them. And so I'm able to do this for myself, but even if it wasn't for me, I can do this. Like I've written other founders' LinkedIn posts just to see if they work. So I've written stuff for like CEOs. I can't fucking code. I have no idea. Like I don't know what their life is like on a first-hand basis. I just kind of know it on a second-hand basis. And so as I write, I just had that person in my mind. I'm like, would they see this and say hell yes? Okay, cool, ship it. Let's see what happens.
Interesting. Yeah, I know the crazy thing about that advice, it's super common advice, but no one actually implements it. And I noticed that recently I was writing a newsletter and, I have 1,100 subscribers and I wanted to let people know about an upcoming live event that I have. And I wrote this email about, hey, got this live event coming up and this person joining and yada, 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 right? And then I remembered that one person on this list is this founder that I really, really respect. The other people were kind of like faceless, anonymous. I don't really know who they are. And I was like, man, I don't want to send an email that where this founder gets, and he's like, oh, whatever, promotional. And so I was like, let me just rewrite it in a way that if I would just send a personal email to that founder and I wanted to let them know that, hey, by the way, I have this thing coming up and I was just wondering if this might be valuable to you. No worries if not, blah, blah, blah. And I rewrote the email in that way and it was completely different.
Yeah.
Completely different. Yeah. Okay. When you write for someone, for yourself or for someone else, you have that one person in mind, whether it's a SaaS founder or a CTO. What how do you think about what is the thing that you need to communicate in terms of like why would someone read this? Like what is the point of a post in your sense, in your world? Like what are you trying to do when you write a post?
Yeah, I've found that if I just try to express one idea, one thing that I find interesting, they tend to go well enough. Like I don't have really a call to action in posts. Like I don't view them really as, I don't know, anything other than just like interesting writing. Um, and so if I can just express something that I find interesting in a unit that like I would actually read through and say, okay, cool, this is actually kind of interesting. Um, it's basically it. I don't really have a formula. I don't have
Yeah.
work. I don't really use any of that. Just
You post very regularly, and a lot of your posts do really well. How do you track ideas? Like, do you sit down every day and you're like, "What interesting thing can I come up with today?" Do you write notes? Do you batch things in advance? Like, what's your
yeah,
approach?
I
Approach.
used to try to like have a Notion tracker for this, and that lasted about like 4 days. And so
Mhm.
it is just, in my mind, I have to write 3 LinkedIn posts a week and 1 newsletter a week. And
Mhm.
it is not going to happen that I'm not going to do that. So I must do that. Hands down, period, done. So I just kind of, usually it's, I have a spark of inspiration, sit down, write 3 posts in 30 minutes, schedule them out for the week, and we're good. And it's because I've been kind of like ruminating on ideas in the background and just like, just and I meet with a shit ton of founders all the time, and I'm still building my own, like I'm bootstrapping my own SaaS software too. So like this is all front of mind anyway, and so it's not super hard. It's just finding a couple of different angles, ideas to poke at.
Okay. And what if why 3, by the way? Why 3 per week? Why is that your number?
I tried 5 once, and that was annoying. And so, yeah, no real, no.
It's the right balance for you.
Yeah, it's fine. And if I want to write more, then I'll write more, and maybe I'll schedule that out for next week, so I don't, get into the crisis mode of saying, "Shit, I don't have any posts this week." But 3 seems to work fine.
So the idea that, inspiration hits, you sit down, you batch write 3 posts in 30 minutes. That sounds like a dream scenario. How often does that actually happen? And what does a more messy situation look like?
That's actually a pretty normal situation.
Huh.
This, um, yeah, it's like usually maybe sometime on a weekend or Monday morning, I'm like, "Oh, shit. I need my post for the week. What ideas do I have in the back of my brain? Like, what's top of mind?" And, just hang them out.
You're right, am I?
Yeah, I don't really think very hard. That's
That's impressive. No, I mean, that's great. Why have you always been would you say you're a natural marketer? Like, do you have a natural knack for so where does that come from? Because you need to have then at least some intuition about what will resonate, how can I improve, what's a good hook, um, at least an intuition. You might not consider yourself an expert, but clearly something's working for you. So where do you think that's coming from?
Yeah. I just think it's that I'm really fucking interested in this thing that nobody else seems to be interested in. Like, I think that is the kind of source of this. I For a couple of weeks, I tried to, like, write stuff that I thought would go more viral, and it did perform better, but I didn't enjoy writing it. And so you'll notice, like, my writing isn't super consistent. It isn't in your typical, like, LinkedIn haiku format or whatever.
Mhm.
I I just enjoy thinking about this and writing this, and so that
Yeah.
filter plus writing for something that is interesting to me. I'd say the only other thing that I've found, I heard a quote once from Bob Moesta, which is like, "Contrast creates meaning." And so what I've seen a lot is there's a lot of kind of generic startup advice that's like, "Find your ICP," or whatever, like that. It all sounds reasonable. But
Yeah.
everything sounds reasonable. Like, every piece of startup advice sounds reasonable. So the interesting thing is to try to find some sort of a contrast in there so that we actually know, okay, like, find your ICP versus what? Like, what are the options here? It's the contrast between 2 different
Yeah.
worldviews, 2 different kinds of meaning, between 2 different approaches on things. And what that tends to do is that tends to create a little more clarity on what I'm saying and why it matters. I found that if there is kind of like a thing that I think I do well, it's looking for the contrast.
Interesting. Now, the contrast is one thing. The other thing that you said is just you just talk about things that are interesting to you, and you're kind of obsessed about this thing that seemingly no one else is obsessed with. Does that extrapolate into advice for founders? If a founder comes to you and they're like, "I like this idea of posting on LinkedIn. I have no idea what I should post about. The things that I do post about, they get no engagement. Like, help me." and would you just say just write about the things you're interested in, or what is the advice that you would give them?
Find a way to obsess about something in your customer's world. Go get firsthand experience, knowledge, whatever about it, and just get obsessed with whatever that thing is. And if you do that, you're going to build a better product and you're going to like nail marketing. You're going to be able to speak your customer's language. Like most of us are kind of stuck in the world of thinking about our goals, the product we want to build, the world we want to exist. And it's like, no, the whole thing is about serving those people, right? The people that you're trying to sell to. And so go get obsessed about something in their world. Go get interested. Like, why else are you in business?
Right. That is brilliant advice. Find something in your customer's world to get obsessed with. Um, when you post, have you found some patterns? You write your thing, you're interested about it, you just put it out into the world, you don't think too much about it. But if you now do an analysis, have you noticed some patterns around the things that do better than others? What are the types of things or the types? Yeah. What have you noticed?
I've kind of, I did this like a year ago and then I kind of stopped doing it. Um,
Mm.
like I kind of notice when some posts do better than others, but I'm not at all scientific about it.
Hmm.
What I think I found was that there are kind of two contrasts that have been interesting to people. One is the bootstrap first venture backed and thinking about that. The second is, I could call it like sales versus research.
Hmm.
So basically, how do you figure out a company? Do you figure it out by research or do you figure it out by selling? And
Uh,
and that contrast is pretty interesting. And so if I write about stuff in those realms, like first of all, I find them interesting, and second of all, other people seem to as well.
got it.
And then like I know there's a lot of stuff on hooks too. I've found just including some contrast in the hook helps.
Can you give me an example? I know we talked about it a little bit, but
Yeah, I don't know. Most people think X. I've seen Y.
mm, yep,
I used to think
makes sense.
X. Now I think Y. First time founders think
Yep.
X. Second time founders think Y.
And now, when you say you did this post analysis, let's say a year ago, and you don't really do that anymore, is that just you accepting that it's just not a type of activity you enjoy, and therefore you accept that you're leaving some money on the table in a way to say, or do you actually feel like it would, in a sense, hurt you by trying because you would pander too much to the algorithm or something like that?
Yeah, I think of this as like what am I trying to do here? Am I trying to like get a shit ton of followers by the end of the year so that I can get some sort of bigger role? No. What am I trying to do? I'm trying to figure something out. And I view this as like a decade long journey, right? I'm writing a book on this. I'm trying to like figure this thing out and create a new set of language and set of words that make this early stage less impossible. And so that's the goal. And
Yep.
for that, like, frankly, I don't care if nobody is like reacting. I'm still going to keep writing. I wrote my newsletter for like 3 years with sub 100 followers.
Hmm. Okay, let's talk about that then, motivation, because I speak to a lot of SaaS founders who want to get into this game. Um, and they put a time horizon on it. They're like, I'm going to commit to this for 3 months, and then I want to see results in the form of whatever it is, leads, inbound, something happening. You just said you wrote your newsletter for like 3 years while no one was reading it. Is there anything to say about this dichotomy? I often find that the most successful people are those who were willing to stick with it even when there wasn't yet not yet real proof that this will pay off. There was a belief, but no data on it yet. What's your opinion on this?
I don't know that I wrote or just like write generally with the expectation that it will pay off period. I write because I'm trying to make sense of a thing. And I wrote for 3 years with I didn't it was, like, cool to see a bunch of other people writing newsletters who kinda, like, went to hundreds of thousands of subscribers and stuff. I just committed to it because it was gonna be the way I was gonna articulate stuff. It was the way like, I had to think out loud almost. And so, I've seen a lot of stuff out there on how to whether it's newsletters or LinkedIn on, like, how do you turn how you create something that is an inbound engine, like a money-making machine. And I'm not I can see how that can kind of work in the short term, but I don't know that that's the right way to think about it, right? Like,
Hmm. Why?
I think you create stuff that, like, flames out that way. That you're just kinda, like, pandering to the algorithm, you're kinda pandering to some sort of, like, a newsletter format that, like I have very specific ones in my mind that I'm not going to say out loud, and I'm just visualizing why I don't
Ah, got
It's
it.
just, like,
But
formulaic stuff that gets old. And so I think this stuff, like, does generate revenue, does generate all this kind of stuff for you,
yeah,
only if you put your soul into it. And if you're focused on doing the thing to get leads, to get revenue in the short term, you're, like, by definition, not putting your soul into the thing.
right. Yeah.
Maybe that's it.
Oh, that's beautiful. Do you know Nassim Taleb? Yeah, Soul in the Game. He speaks about that concept. Reminded me of that. I love that. Now, I'm very biased, um, but I'm curious to get your take on building in public, right? Lots of SaaS found or any founder, it's the new thing to be on Twitter, X, LinkedIn, whatever it is, and document your journey, build in public, right? And it's some people consider it, and I'm probably again leaning on that side of the spectrum that it's one of the best things you can do as a founder to just speak about what you're doing, what you're learning, what you're seeing, et cetera, because it's an amplifier. What's your take on it?
It depends if you're writing for your customers or you're writing for other founders. And the difference there is super important as to whether this is worth doing or not.
Tell me more.
If you're writing for your potential customers, then you're building in public, yeah, but you're kind of just, if you're doing it right, you're not really talking about your product a ton, your service a ton. You're talking about your customers a ton. You're becoming a trusted resource for them to think about their world. And so, yeah, obviously that's useful to do. Is it the most useful thing to do? It's going to depend on your business, right? If you're selling something to, I don't know, SMB restaurants, right? Like all your pontificating, yeah, just get on some cold calls. Uh, yeah, but yeah, I don't know. That's
Okay, interesting. Um, Now, one thing that I was super curious about was your one post that went super viral. Um, and I am super curious about it because I'm gonna just pull it up here on my screen for a second. Window. By the way, in the background, you can hear my daughter who doesn't want to um, wash her hands. This post 4 months ago. Fine, screw it. Here's the entire 6 hour, 91 slide workshop for Harvard Innovation Labs on the path from 0 to 1 million and B2B product market fit. A little bit of a copy. And then you have attached this carousel or the slide deck, which is literally 91 slides. And how many impressions did this post get?
I actually don't know, but I would assume in the millions.
That's crazy. You got 4,600 likes, 5,000 comments, and 250 shares, and in the millions of likes. And the reason why it stands out to me is because most often the things that you see going viral on LinkedIn, that viral, it's like some fluffy culture selfie. Hey, I decided to not hire this person off the street and now they're like my best employee, and like some sob story, or it's like just like some fluffy engineered thing where you again like, man, this feels like so icky. But this is a 91 slide deck about how to go from 0 to 1 million in product market fit, which is insane. So the first thing I was curious about, because people are always obsessed about what will a viral post do for me? If I get a viral post, what will happen? And my take is usually not much, because it is usually something that's not at all connected to your business. You have some hot take or some random stuff and it's a selfie and it's like some, I fired this person, but no one's going to buy a product because of that. Now, I feel like this one must be different because you're literally talking about your expertise, you're solving a problem, and it's directly connected to what you do for a living. So I'm just curious, like, what happens when you get a post like that? Like, just talk me through the experience.
Yeah, the funny thing is, I didn't think that anything was going to happen with that. Um, I posted it before getting in my car and driving for an hour and a half. And then, like, I got out of my car, was like, "Oh, wait, I posted something, didn't I? Like, what's going on?" And then I checked my phone, I was like, "Holy shit." And so that was funny. And I was actually, like, I think I was at MIT that day, like, just doing a workshop, and I would just, like, keep going back and checking my phone, and I just felt my stress level just going straight through the roof because it was like it just kept getting yeah, just kept going crazy.
And I mean, dopamine, that must be dopamine high through the roof.
Cool. Yeah, and so what did that do? What did that do? I think my, like, follower count basically doubled in a week, and
From what to what?
I think it was, like, 10 to 20 or 15, 12 to 25,
Crazy.
something like
Yeah.
that. Yeah, which was cool. Yeah, a bunch of people reached out, a bunch of people just, like, shared that a bunch of places, and so I did get a lot of inbound from that, and I've gotten a lot of,
Yeah.
like, accelerators, VCs reaching out, having me come and talk to their portfolios. So it's been good. My business is basically mostly by referral, though, and so,
Yep.
yeah, I did get more inbound interest, which is cool, but life is kinda staying the same.
Interesting. Even that life stayed the same. Um, do you have any theory around how that happened? Like why?
Around, like, why it went viral or around
Yeah, why this clearly popped off so
I
much?
think it was just such a ridiculously long and interesting resource that, like, people started reading into, and they were like, "Oh my gosh, this is for me. Like, I need this. I need more of this." I originally had people, like, comment because I thought I was just gonna share it out with them, and so I think that also drove a lot of, like, people commented, so more people saw it, so blah, 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 blah. Like, I think there was some sort
Yeah.
of flywheel there. Um, but yeah, I think it's, like, I hate the, like, way of saying, like, "Well, if you build a good product, people will will come to it." But in this case, it was just, like, a ridiculously good resource that was based on me spending 6 hours at Harvard, like, working with students through this that they loved, and so I was like, "Alright, cool. Let's
Yeah.
let's give it out."
Have you since tried reposting it? Will you?
I haven't thought about that up until now. So,
Interesting. That's where like my brain is like, I'm just curious if you post it again in 2 months, so 6 months after you originally posted, how it will do then. Um,
yeah, I don't know. I
yeah.
it's an interesting thought. I've had other people ask me if they can post it, and they've done well with it too, so Um, maybe.
Mm.
I posted video slides from him because I think they're like things I can double click into or things I keep getting questions on. Um,
Yeah.
no, I've thought about doing another one too at some point, just like a totally different
Yep.
one for the next. We're gonna do another probably 6 hour workshop next summer, so I'll have another one.
Nice. Now you said the you do essentially LinkedIn and then the newsletter. How do you see those two's interacting? What is each one's role per se?
I think of LinkedIn as more for high level things, not quite so deep. And I think of the newsletter.
Except when you post a 91 page slide deck.
Yeah. It's for, I guess it's for like individual ideas. Maybe you're just like interesting ideas. And the newsletter is, for me, trying to get deeper into a concept. I don't know if other people,
So it's expanding on things.
other people view it that way, but like,
Yeah.
I have a kind of like I've developed like a series of frameworks on how to think about demand and all that kind of stuff. And like, I talk about them at a high level on LinkedIn, but I go into them in much more detail in the newsletter. Cause I assume people who are reading the newsletter, like, actually want that level of depth. They've kind of already agreed to get my like deeper thoughts on it. And people on LinkedIn, like, just kind of like randomly stumbling across my shit.
Yep. And you funnel from, so LinkedIn is kind of the top of funnel, and then from LinkedIn you promote your podcast, your newsletter every now and then, and you say, hey, I go more in depth here and sign up.
There's a button on LinkedIn too. This is
Oh yeah, yeah. Yep. Interesting. What do you use any tools for LinkedIn? Like, is it just, you said you tried out Notion and that didn't work, but anything else you use?
I used something to, when all those people commented, I used something to like scrape all of them and then DM them the thing. It was Phantom Buster.
Oh yeah. Okay, fair.
But like nothing
Yeah.
for writing, no.
Okay, interesting. Yeah, to when you created the slide deck to DM them to people. Okay, yeah, fair enough. You have a framework for demand. So I was curious, is that for like how demand happens, or how do you create demand, or what's your framework about?
What actually is demand? What does it mean if a guy has demand for something? Like what does that actually mean? Like we're like basically the thesis on this, I find this to be like probably the most confusing thing is this concept of demand of like, because
Yeah.
we always think, okay, I'm going to build a product. I need to figure out if somebody wants my product. And wanting my product is demand in that frame of mind, just desire for a product. But like nobody wants a fucking SaaS product. Like nobody raids out Des Moines. They're like, you know what? Enterprise
Yeah.
days a day for enterprise software. Like that's what I'm really gotta think about. And so the question is like, why does anyone buy anything?
Hmm.
And we're told that people buy things because they have problems or pain points.
Yeah.
But like, I have a shit ton of problems and pain points that I don't do anything about. I'm pretty sure life is just like a sequential series of pain points.
Pain and suffering.
Right? And most of the time we'll kind of like, we just suffer through them. So again, it comes back to the question, why does anyone buy anything? And so what I've been I think like the core of what I've been working on is this question. Because obviously if we don't know the answer to this question, what are we doing? Like
Yeah.
we need to understand why people are buying. And it's not because they want our product. It's not because it necessarily solves a problem. And so coming up with a way to think about this has kind of taken some from Jobs to Be Done, taken some from a lot of different places. But what I've come up with is this, people have projects on their mind. They have this to-do list in their brain, and that to-do list is kind of infinite. There's a million things I would like to do. At any one point in time, I can really only focus on one. And so the interesting thing becomes, okay, what's the project that I'm actually focused on right now? What do I need to accomplish? And when I focus on a project in my mind, then I consider alternative approaches to accomplish that project. And that's where a product fits. And so I don't like when I'm building a product, What I really need to look for if I'm looking for demand is a project on someone's mental to-do list. And that's what demand is. And so if I understand the project on their mind and I can fit my product into that better than their other approaches, then they will probably buy from me. If I don't understand the project or why that project is on someone's critical path or when it's on their critical path, then like nothing else, then it just kind of like doesn't work. And I have to try to twist their arms to buy it. I have to try to evangelize, educate them and all that kind of stuff. I don't want to do that. I just want people to see it and buy.
And for you, is that project, hey, I need to find product market fit? Is that project getting to 1 million? What's the project on your customer's mind?
Yeah, it's more nuanced than that. So let me tell you the situation. The situation is I've done a bunch of research. I have a great idea, big plans. Built an MVP, maybe with some design partners. We've launched it. We're now trying to sell it, and it's not working. Something about it isn't working. And so the project on my mind right now is like, figure out founder-led sales so that I can get to product market fit. That's the specific situation in the project. And if somebody in that situation talks to me or like sees my stuff, 10 out of 10, they're like, yeah, that's exactly what I need.
How do you know at what stage to capture them, in the sense of some founders might be at that stage where just like, I haven't sold anything and I don't know why. Some founders are like, I haven't sold anything and I know it's because I'm just not good at sales and I need to figure out how to do founder-led sales. Some founders are like, I know it's founder-led sales. I know I need to get better at it. And I probably need to find a founder-led sales coach. So like, at what stage of the, people talk about problem aware, solution aware, that type of thing. Like, how do you know whether you need to speak to people at a problem aware stage or solution aware stage, if that fits within your framework that you would?
Yeah, I don't really think about problem aware and solution aware. I just don't think those are like useful terms. I think of it as if they have been trying to sell and something about it isn't working. They might have customers, they might not. But if they're at that moment, then I am a good fit for them. Then they are a good fit for me. That's it. I don't care if they've looked for coaches. I don't care what they've done.
Right, but I'm saying, if I now think about message market fit, if you just go out and you're like, I help founders figure out founder-led sales, and it's a little, founder-led sales is a little bit self-explanatory, but let's say there was a more, advanced term for that. You might fall on deaf ears because you might reach a founder who's like, I just haven't sold anything. I don't know why. And then you go out and you're like, I help people founder-led sales. And like, I don't know what that is. Like, I'm just struggling to sell.
Yeah.
So you need to go a level below and you need to say, if you're struggling to sell and you just built your MVP, then I can help. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Yeah, so here's how I used to say I help founders find product market fit, and I think all about product market fit, and that's all I care about. Nobody has a product market fit project on their brain. And so it's more of an existential dread and an existential fear in the background, but it's never a project. And so, yeah, I mean, the way I describe it is just, if you have done these things and you are at this point looking in this direction with this kind of project, then you are a fit for me.
Mm-hmm. How did you figure out your project? How did you figure out that that's the project?
By trying a bunch of different frames of the project that didn't quite work and seeing who was a hell yes when they bought. So like basically I kind of had what I thought was the project, which was this product market fit thing. And as I did that, I'd see in conversations with potential customers, with other founders, that they like wouldn't quite be able to understand it. And they'd ask me a series of questions. And based on their questions, I was like, okay, something about this isn't fitting. And then people would buy despite that, right? Just because they're like, okay, cool. I don't know what you actually do, but you seem like you're going to be able to help. So like, let's fucking go. Let's figure this out. Okay, cool.
Yeah.
Let's do it. Over time, what I realized was that there is a certain kind of founder who was a hell yes after they bought, like
Mm.
100% of the time. And that founder actually, when they heard about me, was also like, I feel like they could have been a hell yes. And they were in this very situation. And if I was like trying to find the pattern across the customers, the companies that like I was able to help the most, that were hell yes post sale, versus the ones that were like a little bit less successful with it, it was much more the company, like if they hadn't tried selling yet, yeah, I could help them, but it wasn't a hell yes for them. If they
Mm.
if they didn't feel like they were responsible for selling, like if they had hired a salesperson, then I couldn't help them, right? And so it was kind of, again, Nassim Taleb via negativa, right? Like it was how do I just draw the circle around the hell yes in a way that they look at how I talk about it and they say hell yes.
Right.
And how do I exclude the people that I don't want to work with and who aren't good fits? And so other pieces I add into that are like, this is for overthinking founders, right? This is for like, I feel like there are two kind of founders. There's like the overthinker, the person who needs frameworks and ways to think about things, which is very much me. And then there are like the founders who just say, fuck it and shoot from the hip. And they don't need my help because they just go out and do shit and figure it out, right? Like, so it's this kind of founder at this kind of stage who says hell yes before and after they buy.
It's all what my brain just went is, I think, also something that Nassim Taleb talks about, which is domain dependence, which is that on the product market fit side, you seem to be very much a framework person. On the content side, you don't seem to be at all, because that's where I'm like, how do you approach things? What's your framework? How do you think about content ideas? And you're just like, I just post what's interesting to me, and it's just like you just kind of do it.
Yeah.
So it's fascinating.
I don't know. Barbell life.
Yeah, there we go. All right. Before this takes a turn into becoming a podcast about Nassim Taleb, let's wrap it up here. Rob, thank you so much for joining. This was, I would say, the second most embarrassing moment I've had so far in my podcast interview, where my mind just completely blanked, and I like had to take a moment to catch the thread again. So thank you for bearing with me, and thank you for taking the time. If people want to learn more, your LinkedIn will be in the description. Your company, I think it's called Reframe, right?
We're going to change that at some point, but
It's also in the description. So again, thank you so much, Rob.